Hey everybody, Jim from ISL Online, and we are going to go through the multiple ways that you can connect to a remote computer using ISL Lite. So the most straightforward way is to just click Start New Session once logged into ISL Lite, and then right-click on the session code that shows up and click Copy URL. Now this can be sent over to wherever a link can be clicked on. I've got my live chat right here. That's how I'm choosing to send it. The idea is they click the link and a one-time session file downloads. And once the file's open, they click join and we are connected to the computer. We can start moving stuff around. We can go through their file explorer or whatever have you. Go through a great assortment of functionalities that we'll explain in our toolbar video. And once we're done troubleshooting, we can just close the session and we're done. So that's the general idea for a one-time support session, but let's say, for example, I'm on the phone with the client. I don't really have the ability to paste them a link that they can click on. So what I do in that case is I click New Session, and instead of going to the copy URL, we're just going to indicate the session code to the client. We can also copy-paste it if we want to. There are reasons to do so, but in our scenario, we're over the phone, so no copy-pasting. So meanwhile, on the client's end, what they do is they click on Join Session via the islonline.com website and type in that code. They click Join or hit Enter. Once again, they download the file and then they open it. Same thing as with the URL, they click Join and we're connected. But before I do that, there is one cool thing that ISL does offer, and that's the ability to create your own join page as opposed to using ours. So a little side mission here would be to take a look at the Connect box. And what this is a bit of code that goes on your website. And once it's configured, you should get something like this. And from there, I can just type in that session code one more time, click join or hit enter. The download appears, I open the file up, we click join, and on my end, as you can see, the same thing happens. I am once again connected to the computer. All right, let's say the situation's a little bit more complex. We are planning the session ahead of time. We would like to configure some behaviors in advance, and this can be done by the session invite. So we go ahead and we click New Session, and then we click Invite, where we then have a list of options to choose from. This is usually minimized, but I have it maximized. Otherwise, what we're looking for is called Show Options. Anyway, the first thing we see is the ability to just do what we did with Copy URL, but sent in an email template directly from ISL Lite. So you type in the email, and then you go ahead and click Send, and then they'll get an email invitation prompting them to join a session, which, of course, they will then be directed to click on the link, download the file, open it, click join, and we're connected. But what this panel also allows me to do, for example, is share my screen with Bob instead of viewing his. Let's say I'm doing a demo. I want to show him some things. So I select Share My Screen. We can then optimize the quality or optimize the speed of the performance of the session. All depends on your internet connection. And look, I don't necessarily want the other side to be able to control my keyboard and mouse. I'm just trying to show them something. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that option disabled. It can be re-enabled a little later on in session. Otherwise, I can give the session a name, provide an email, and provide notes about the session. And this information that you see right here will be visible in the reports section at a later date for admin and export purposes. Now, of course, we could choose to send this as an email, but let's go with code because I want to show you the next way to connect, which is ISL Lite Client. This can be found in the downloads page of our website, and what ISL Lite Client does is it just sits right on the client's desktop waiting for a session code. So when we want to connect, we tell the client the session code, they type it in or they copy paste it here, and as usual, they click join or hit enter once ISL Lite Client opens. And once the session starts, you'll see that I'm actually sharing my desktop for a change. That's due to the settings we just configured. Meanwhile, Bob on the other side is not really able to move anything, and all he can do right now is just put little annotations. All right, so let's close the session because the next thing we're going into is unattended access. Now, unattended access allows me to add a computer to my list that I can later on connect to with a password. So how do I set that up? I click Set Unattended Access from the ISL Lite menu. We can go ahead and copy the entire URL. Mind you, this is a permanent URL and can be used over and over. And as you can see, I've still got my chat open, so I send it over to them in chat, where they can proceed to click on that link and open up the file that downloads, which is ISL Always On, the remote access agent. And then we just approve and go through the ISL Always On installation procedure. Now, keep in mind, we offer silent parameters and all sorts of mass deployment options, but we'll tackle all that in a separate video. So once installed, we are then prompted to enter a password for the computer. So we type in the password, we click Grant Access or hit Enter, and then we save our settings. Now on my end, I'm going to see the newly created computer, so I can connect to it now using the password that was defined earlier. Of course, this comes in handy when we're dealing with large databases of computers, such as schools, hospitals, banks, or, somebody you love who just isn't really all that tech savvy, family member maybe. Anyway, I just click on it and connect to it using the password that was defined earlier in the process. And we are once again connected. All right, the very last thing I'd like to show you before we end this video is connecting via the website. So let's say I'm on the move. I don't have any kind of device where I can install any kind of software. If we just go to islonline.com and log in, and then we click the arrow button next to the new session or connect options, we can then see an option called New Session in Browser. This is also available for unattended access. So what I can do is I can go to the Computers tab, and then I can go to the little arrow right here, and it's going to say Connect in Browser. So let's click on that, and we can see a version of ISLite coming up inside of our browser. So, as usual, we just type in the password we defined earlier, we click Connect or hit Enter, and look at that. Look at that. We are now connected using nothing but our browser. All right, very last thing I'd like to leave you with is the ability to connect via RDP. So if everything's been configured correctly, I should be able to click on the Actions menu of the computer in question, click Connect via RDP SSH, localhost, and enter the password of the computer. Click Connect or hit Enter, and you might have a few of these notifications to approve. And here I am entering the Windows credentials to the remote computer. Sometimes you do that beforehand, sometimes you do that after the fact, but the point is, I am now connected to this computer using the Windows Remote Desktop Protocol, despite not being in the local area network. There's a little configuration involved, we have a guide for that, but once configured, this is the perfect work-from-home setup, and you don't even need to touch your firewall or set up a VPN. ISLite takes care of that tunneling for you. All right, that was our ways to connect. Thank you for being with us, and see you next time.